All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from in the world today. My name is Len Thompson, and I am Broadcom's Mainframe Division Community Manager, and I want to welcome you to today's Beyond Code webcast. Before I hand you off to Jennifer, Earl, and Josh, just a few things I need to cover. First, as always, if you have questions during the session, please do put them in the questions box along the right-hand side of your screen. We're going to try to ask those questions throughout the conversation. If there's any that we may miss along the way, we'll try to cover them at the end. And if for some reason we run out of time or if something requires a little more research, I will make sure I capture your information so that the team can get back to you later this week. Your lines are all currently muted. That's because we're recording today's session. But the replay will be available out in the Broadcom mainframe software community either later today or sometime tomorrow. And the last thing for me is that we always want these sessions to be valuable, all of our community-based webcasts. So at the end of the session, a short survey is going to pop up. If you can stick around and give us some feedback, I know everyone would appreciate it. And with that out of the way, I think I'm going to hand you off to Josh, who's going to get us started. Take it away, sir.
Oh, thanks, Len. Really nice intro. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I'm Josh Dorfman. I'm a research strategist on the user experience team here at Broadcom Software. And I'm going to be moderating today. We're going to be using a bit of a debate format. We have some really interesting opinions, perspectives, and experiences on what really makes the best, mainframers, and what we, looking forward, will be using, what we use to attract and retain that kind of talent. Before we get into that, I want to introduce our participants today. Jen Scott, would you mind giving us a quick intro?
Sure. Jen Scott. I am a mainframe education program lead. I've been with Broadcom for, it'll be 25 years come December. And education, I've been in education for just about 18 years. So the information and the knowledge that I have for this conversation is pretty wide. And with that, I'll turn it over to Earl. Earl, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Earl, and I've been around the mainframe for almost 30 years. I started off as an operator, worked my way up through DBA and to a DB2 system programmer for about 20 years. Then I came over to Broadcom to help run what we call our Vitality program, where we, bring up new mainframers and put them with our clients or help our clients build up their mainframe talent. So I have a wealth of experience within the mainframe from working with it and then also working with Jen to help educate the next generation of mainframers.
So obviously, Earl and Jen, we have this Vitality program in place that's meant and designed to train the next generation. And I think what we wanted to do today is give everyone a bit of a look under the hood of some of the internal, let's say, call them friendly sparring matches that happen about what really produces the best mainframers. We have a few topics that we're going to go through today, and I think really the natural place for us to start is people's lives before they become mainframers. Obviously, there's as we've seen, there's a variety of different backgrounds that people come from, both professionally and personally. We've seen success from all of them in many ways. But based on our experiences and the experiences of our students, there's some clear, strong opinions about what really makes the best mainframer. So maybe if you don't mind, Earl, ladies first, if you don't mind, me being a Southern gentleman. Jen, I thought I'd let you kick it off and kind of talk about what you see as being the best background for mainframers.
Absolutely. So I've been involved in new hire programs for, I believe, 10 years now. And one of the things that I've noticed that makes a good mainframer is someone that has that technical background. And that technical background could be, some type of a technical degree like a computer science degree. And what we found is, based on what they've learned, there's some schools that do have mainframe within their curriculums, but what we have found is with that computer science degree and those technical degrees, they're a very easy fit into the mainframe space. They're a very easy fit into our technical classes, into our technical workshops. So that's something that I do see as being something to look at, but I know, Earl, you've got a little bit of a different opinion on that.
I absolutely do. While I do agree that the technical background or that comp sci degree does help someone get their future started a little quicker, I think that when you look at being a mainframer, because there aren't a lot of schools that teach the mainframe, you have to look beyond that technical degree and look at that person's technical aptitude. We've gone through a lot of sessions with our Vitality program where we had people that didn't have technical degrees. I didn't have a technical degree to start out, and I worked my way up. So it's really about that person and what they bring to the table. Perfect example. We had one of our students that came through our program, and they literally had a veterinarian degree. That person went through our program and passed a lot of our classes with flying colors, and is actually now an engineer slash developer within our IDMS team. Another example, we had a young lady who was a French teacher. Her name, Katie Juhala. Hopefully she's on this webcast, because I didn't call her out at the last session that I had on this, but Katie Juhala, she went through our program as a French teacher, didn't know anything really about the mainframe, no technical background. She came through with flying colors. Broadcom decided to hire her into the ACF2 team. And a year and a half later, while I was doing the same discussion with JJ at another share event, she was actually hosting an ACF2 session with at share on digital certificates. So within a year and a half, we took this person that had no technical degree and made them a mainframer, not only a mainframer, but someone that could actually help develop the code for the mainframe. So I think that it really depends on the individual. And when you're interviewing those individuals, you have to really look at, are they hungry? Are they willing to learn? Those are the key aspects that I look for when I look at that new generation of mainframer. Who's going to be that person that's going to stand out? And it's not always about that technical degree. It's about who's going to work the hardest to get what they want. You know, some people coming out of college, you know, may not always know what they want when they come out with that comp sci degree. They may want to go work at Google or anything else. They may not think the mainframe is that quote unquote sexy job that can, you know, get everybody excited for what they do. But what people don't understand is that mainframe is the ultimate job, because you do all of the behind the scenes things that people don't even know what you do. And that's like the beautiful thing of talking to people. But I'm going to pass it back to Jen, because I could talk all day about why I think, you know,
Well, actually,
mainframers
Earl,
can
I
come
wanted
from
to.
any background.
No, I love that. Jen, can I just jump in for a quick second? So,
Absolutely. Mhm.
Earl, one thing that you and I have talked about quite a bit is career progression, right? Like, what does the career progression? And maybe you could tell us a little bit about how, you know, the diverse backgrounds that you're talking about. What does that look like? I mean, I hate the term soft skills, because honestly, I think they're the hardest to acquire. But I do think that a lot of the people that I've seen come through the program with a bit more, you know, quote unquote life experience, bring some of those soft skills with them. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about how that benefits them, you know,
Well,
down the
you
road
know,
in their career.
perfect example. Say you have someone, and we'll use Katie Juhala as an example. She came out as a French teacher. She wanted to teach French. She got into her career, and then she realized she wanted something more than that. And those people, a lot of the times, they make a great mainframer because they're looking for something to have that long-term career. And so when she found the program and came into the program, she worked hard, very hard at this. Not to say that people with a comp sci degree aren't going to work hard, but maybe some of them think that, you know, I got this, I have a comp sci degree, I've been to school 4 years learning computers, I can do this in my sleep. But people that don't, they have to stay up late at night studying this stuff. And those that have that aptitude to do that, you know, they have been through a lot of things in life. They are more likely to not only stick with it, but also be there and learn everything for the long haul.
That's awesome. Sorry, Jen, I didn't mean to
And
interrupt you, but I wanted to give Earl a little assist. I know he's going to need it against you. So, you know.
oh, No, but actually, you bring up a good point. If the person is hungry for it, they are going to do very well. And, that's the point that Earl and I definitely agree with. So there are people that come through the program that, whether it's their second career change, or if they did just get out of college and decide, this isn't what I want to do, but they've come into our space, that's something, that hunger, as long as that's hunger there, and you can look and see that hunger when you're interviewing those folks, they do very, very well, because like Earl said, they're really in there studying, they're doing the homework, they're doing the extra work. And Josh, I absolutely agree with you. The soft skills are the hard skills. If you've got the soft skills and the technical skills, then you're going to go a lot farther.
No, that's awesome. Jen, just on your side too, and I wanted to go back to that comp sci background. I think Earl's making some really strong points, that
Right.
that those the life experience goes a long way, and the technical skills can be taught. I think one sort of flip side to that is that more and more we're seeing these cutting edge technologies integrated into mainframe systems, whether they be, machine learning algorithms, different types of automation, modern developer experiences. And those are things which, are typically, as you pointed out, whereas there may not be mainframe programs in many comp sci programs, a lot of those cutting edge technologies are taught in your typical comp sci program. I wonder if you could just speak a little bit to how you're seeing that play out, with that comp sci background moving, obviously maybe everyone starts relatively at the same place with learning the mainframe, but how that background, the specific skills that you're gaining in a comp sci background can maybe give them a leg up as they're learning these more modern systems that are being integrated on the mainframe.
Well, one of the things that I see is reverse mentoring. And what that means is the folks are coming in and they're teaching some of the seasoned vets in the mainframe space. They're teaching them, hey, this is something that's new and exciting. Let's learn about, you had said machine learning. So they're teaching the things that they've learned within that degree to some of the, I'll say it, older generations that are within the mainframe space. And it's really interesting to see some of those innovations that have come along based on that. And I don't want to speak out of context, but I believe some of our new innovations within the DevOps space have been based on that. So, we see things like Zoe and Brightside and all of those different tools in the DevOps space that I feel is a direct result of the combination of the innovation from the folks that have come in with those computer science degrees and working with the seasoned folks that understand the mainframe systems as well as they do.
And I'd agree with that. The only thing I would counter to that is that you need that base knowledge of the mainframe, regardless of what else you bring to the table, because the skills that we need for those next generation of mainframers are those basic skills. So those that are going to come in and do the admin, the sysprog, the development, the engineers of the next generation are going to need to know the basics mainframe. It's wonderful that they bring in a lot of the other stuff, but those that come in and learn those basics are going to be invaluable to those that do come in with the add-ons to the mainframe.
So I mean,
Agreed.
Jen, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jen. I don't mean to interrupt you.
I was just going to say, well, and that actually lends itself to building the relationships internally. So you've got some really great collaborative relationships so that they do understand base mainframe, that they do have that infinite understanding, so to speak. So yeah, to your point, I see both of those, but I really believe that it's that partnership between the two that are really key moving forward.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I mean, you guys can keep me honest here, but the way I see it is, a program like Vitality can take someone from any background and make them successful in the mainframe. But the reality is that we also need to be aware of how the differences in background play out as, they get onto the mainframe and mature in their career. And I think that's what's really important here, that we have a really strong understanding of how those different backgrounds play out, where some of the, the knowledge gaps may exist, whether they can be on both sides. Again, I hate using the hard and soft skills, but both need, you need upskilling in. Whether you have someone with a, recent college grad coming out with a really strong comp sci background, but who has practically zero work experience outside of maybe an unpaid internship. No, no internships to be unpaid, but that's for a different webcast for sure. But just being really aware of that. I mean, I think that's where I'm landing here with this debate, is that we need to be aware of how those different backgrounds play out, at least, you know, in the early career phase of
Yeah, and
mainframe.
I mean, again, like I said, I think the comp sci does benefit individuals coming into the mainframe space, but I just want people to understand that don't limit yourself to only looking for those with a comp sci degree, because you miss out on so much talent. And I gave you two examples of that, and I can give more, but it's just understand that people who are out there in the workforce today and are looking for those long-term careers, and they see mainframe as that, give them a chance. They'll surprise you.
Well, to add on to that too, when you're hiring folks that may not have that computer science degree, make sure that you're meeting that person where they are, not where you are. So you could have 25 years of mainframe experience. That's all well and good. If you're not meeting that new hire, that new person where they are, they may get discouraged from it. So that's really a key into this too. So they may not have that technical background, but just meet them where they are and work with them where they are so that they get to the point where you want them to be.
I love that
Absolutely,
message.
Jen. That is perfect. That was perfectly said. I mean, because when you're fostering these individuals, and even those with comp sci degrees, because 9 times out of 10 they did not go to a college that focused on mainframe or enterprise systems. So even though they have that comp sci degree, you still have to meet them at their place because they have zero knowledge of the mainframe.
Mhm.
I love that. And as I think is pretty obvious here, guys, this is an ongoing conversation. In fact, I might do a shameless plug here. Some of you probably remember Earl and I from Sharon Dallas. We engaged in this conversation at one of our sessions. And in the Sharon Columbus, here's my shameless plug. Jen, Earl, and our colleague JJ will be engaging in this conversation again. And so it's ongoing. And I'm actually expecting a pretty lively Slack channel after this webcast, kind of continuing this conversation. Oh, I wish I had said this. This is the point I wanted to make. But that's the thing, is we're thinking very deeply about what makes a good mainframer. And I think if it's all right with the two of you, maybe we'll move on from the life before to one of the hottest topics probably right now in terms of the training, onboarding, and really what life is like on the mainframe, which is the idea of, you know, which is better, virtual or face-to-face, right? It's something that we you know, in the post mid COVID world, I don't even know where we are anymore, but that's become the reality, is that their virtual has become part of the reality in which we live. But I think as we begin, hopefully, to be coming out of the COVID world, you know, and we can get back to face-to-face, I'm excited to be back at the second live share, for example, you know, next month or 2 months, almost next month. But thinking about what really is best for training new mainframers. Is it virtual or face-to-face? And Jen, in the interest of fairness, I'm going to shift over to Earl to kick us off on this one. Earl, I know you have thoughts. Let us have
Yeah. So the virtual versus in person. Because I am old school, I'm a little older than Jen, and only by a little bit. Don't let the gray hairs fool you. But you know, the thing about this is that I am a true proponent of in-person learning. I have had to adapt over these COVID years to doing the virtual, and it has worked. Don't get me wrong, it works. But there's just something about the camaraderie that you get when you have a group of individuals in a classroom working with an instructor face to face, where they can see all of the facial expressions. You can't turn your camera off. Everything is live there, and they can look over your shoulders when you're having trouble. Or you can collaborate with the other students in the class a little more efficiently than you could in that virtual space. And that's where my old school thinking is, that, you know, having people in a class just generates so much more camaraderie. Perfect example, when we started the Vitality program, everything was on site, and we would have young individuals starting their career out, and we'd have them up in a hotel while they were in class for 6 weeks. They'd get back to the hotel and they'd have happy hour, and they're sitting there discussing class. Some of them formed their own little study groups, you know, right there in the lobby, where they had their laptops open, looking at each other and helping each other out. And you can do that in the virtual world. It's just a little harder because you do have distractions when you work from home. You know, oh, I'll just go grab a sandwich. Oh, I'll just take a quick break. When you're in that classroom, you're less likely to have a lot of those distractions that you'll have at home. There's not gonna be a dog barking, because I actually heard one earlier on this webcast, but we'll leave that alone. Okay, that was Josh. You know, you don't have those distractions, or you know, especially during the COVID time when you had the kids running in, like, who's that on camera, Daddy? Why does he look like that? You know, those type of things. So then I'll turn it over to Jen before I go on with this.
Well, I just wanted to add, another thing that was interesting to me about, unfortunately, we have been virtual for the past couple of years with the trainings. But I remember back in, gosh, I don't even remember what it was, very early 2020, I think, we had a training down here in Texas. And I was lucky enough to get to facilitate a few days of that and in person. And I remember that it was the things I learned about the students when we were grabbing a coffee between sessions. Or those casual conversations that really gave me insights, going back to our previous discussion about, having a really detailed and in-depth understanding of where people are coming from to help tailor the sessions toward them. And it was during those breaks in person, that are very hard to mimic virtually, that I gained those kind of insights that helped me kind of, on the fly, make changes to how I was presenting information and examples that I would give that would be more relatable to students coming from different backgrounds.
So Josh, does that mean you're on my side?
Well, I'm on everybody's side. I'm kind of Switzerland here, honestly. I'm facilitating the conversation. I'm giving you an assist, man.
Okay.
Jen, I'm gonna throw it over to you because I know there's some excellent arguments for virtual as well. I mean, that's clear.
Well, and in a lot of aspects, I do prefer face-to-face. You guys have mentioned some great things. Virtual is more difficult. Virtual can be done. We've learned to do that, and we've learned to adjust based on, the virtual space. So I can give you an example. Right now, one of the programs that I run is our internal onboarding program, and it's called the ASE training. And we go through soft skills and we go through technical skills. And I will say that it is more difficult to do that virtually. However, we've been successful for, I want to say it's the third one we've done virtually. And one of the things that we have learned through this is the smaller the group of students, the better it is virtually. So we can't have a classroom of 50 technical students that are going through with one instructor. That's virtually impossible because you are working on homework assignments, you're working on exams, you're working on lab exercises. Those do take time, and to know whether or not your students are achieving the goals that they're looking to achieve and to learn those skills, the instructor would need to have some one-on-one time with them, or to at least be able to see a facial expression. By using our cameras, it is definitely much more beneficial because you can see facial expressions. You can see, hey, you know what, I do have a question on this, can you help me out? What we found is if we have a lot of students in the classroom, that is not as effective as the smaller classroom setting. So for instance, one instructor per potentially 12 students max, usually around 10. That way they can see the faces, they can get to know those students, they can get to have those types of conversations. We've also opened it up. We do use Slack internally, and we have a Slack channel specific for the students. So the students can ask the questions either through the application that we're using. We could use WebEx, or we use something called InSpace. And so between the two of them, there is a chat feature that you can chat there, or you can add the questions into Slack. What's nice about Slack is all of the instructors are on there as well, and the instructors can answer any of the questions that come up. So it's not necessarily just the instructor that is teaching that class. There are other instructors that can jump in and answer the questions as they come up. So we have made it work. It is more difficult. It is more challenging. It is something that you have to work at. It's more time consuming to build something in a virtual setting. What's nice in the virtual setting is if you have somebody that's willing to be in your time zone. We have a gentleman that's in Spain that is joining us on East Coast time, and he's willing to change his schedule so that he can be a part of the training. So what's nice about that is you do have the ability to reach more of an audience in a virtual setting. And we have, like I said, we have tried the best that we can to have those coffee talks, so to speak, those little breaks, those things. We have a lot of different icebreakers within the training, within the first few weeks of the training, so that people get to know each other a little bit better. So while it's most ideal to do it in person, we also have made sure that it works virtually, but it is, like I said, it is more of a challenge. It can work as long as you put the time in to make it work.
And I think
I just want to add one more thing to that about the virtual versus in person. What I found is that, you know, in person, people, like I said, can see their counterparts in the class, see their struggles and so on. And so they'll be more apt to ask those questions that they may think is stupid, but I always say there is no such thing as a stupid question. It's just the question you don't answer, which is a stupid question. But what I see online is that people will wait for someone else to try and ask it versus asking it and putting it in the chat or something like that and having it attached to their name. You know, whereas if they're in person, they're more apt to ask those questions because they feel more comfortable with the people around them versus in that virtual space where it's just a box on a screen.
That's really interesting. And I think one thing that's fair here is that this would be a very different conversation if we were, say, back mid 2020, when using the virtual tools, we were little babies, essentially. We had no idea really how to mimic it at all. And I will say, just to kind of, I promised Jen I would give you an assist too. I think we've gotten a lot better at mimicking face-to-face at this point. We've gotten much more skilled at using virtual tools to at least get closer to a face-to-face. The other side of this also, I think, kind of tying this back into our first topic of the diversity of backgrounds that we're seeing, is that virtual can often be more conducive, not just to people that are, in other countries for sure, but people that are coming, either from different personal backgrounds. Maybe they have young children, maybe they're single parents, that are responsible for their kids during the day, especially right now during the summer. I think a lot of us can feel that pain. But even the idea of, of neurodiversity, I think, it's kind of more layman's terms, people coming from different learning backgrounds. Jen, maybe I thought I might turn that
or
over
even
to you.
physical diversity, even physical diversity.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can say one thing, when you're physically in a classroom, whiteboards are used, the Post-it, I'm like pointing like you know what I'm talking about, but the Post-its that you put across the room and whatnot, we use tools today that enable you to take that with you. So when you're in the classroom, you can't take the whiteboard with you. You have to take, copious notes, which you should be doing anyway, but you can't take those assets that are in the classroom. Whereas all of the tools that we have today, that we've been using today, the students are able to take those with them. They're able to go back and look, okay, wait, this was on the board, this is the information that I'm looking at. So, okay, here's where I had a hiccup. And they can go back and pinpoint exactly what it is that they're looking for. So, in terms of what you were mentioning, you've got the ability to go back. You've got the ability at your fingertips to be able to address all of those different issues, whether it's, physical or visual or whatever the case may be. You have that ability. I don't know if I totally answered your question.
No, I think there's a lot of aspects to it, Jen. I think your points are really strong. I mean, I think the reality is different people learn in different ways. And,
Right.
Going back to the original statement I made at the beginning, it's more critical than ever, especially in sort of the hybrid computing world, that we get the best skills possible on the mainframe. I mean, so much critical data and business operations run on the mainframe. We need the best people. And we certainly don't want to limit that to, just people say they are good at classroom learning, because not everyone is. I'm terrible at it. I have an advanced degree and I am terrible at learning in the classroom. Like, I need to sit down in my own space, like with some noise canceling headphones on, and actually like process it myself. And I'm sure a lot of people are the same, and even different types of diversity in learning. And I think that's where the virtual format can really excel.
Well, and not only that, but we do give them homework. So even when they're face to face, they have homework that they're taking back and doing that hands-on piece. So to your point, I do best if you show me how to do something, I can probably replicate it because you've showed me how to do it. If you tell me to read something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into me understanding what I'm reading. So to your point, you know, I feel like we have all of the tools at your fingertips when we're presenting it in that way.
But I think also, you know, the way I read all this is that the ideal is a hybrid situation, right? Because I think it's pretty obvious that there's benefits to both. I mean, I think it's a hard argument to say there's not something amazing about just being face to face with people. Or I like, you know, just seeing people's expressions. Like I find it very hard sometimes to read people, even on a video screen, right? Because you're really only seeing this sort of, you know, chest up view of them. And people express themselves with their whole bodies. And so there's something missing in sort of the nonverbal communication. But of course, I think on the flip side, there's enormous benefits. You know, it's funny, I had a meeting the other day with someone and we're in the same office, right? But we actually found it better to just do it, you know, over the computer because it's easier to share content when you're on your computer rather than face to face. Like you have to find a meeting room, you know, with the proper setup or whatever. So we're definitely in this hybrid work world now where, you know, everyone wants to meet in person, but sometimes for getting real work done, I don't know. And me personally, I like the virtual stuff because it lets me share content and I don't know, record better, right?
And I don't think that we're going to go back 100% virtual or 100% face to face. I think what's going to happen, like you said, Josh, I think it's going to be hybrid where, okay, we're going to have this face to face, but maybe, you know, once a year, it's going to be a virtual setting, to your point. So I absolutely agree with that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I mean, and just again, a shameless plug, you know, this is an ongoing conversation. Like we're going to be touching a lot more topics at our share presentation in Columbus. In the interest of time, you know, I think maybe I'll put a cork in this topic. And you know, I'm hoping that people don't get a sense that we're constantly in disagreement and trying to, you know, come to terms, you know, with a terrible culture. It's not the case at all. You know, I think that we are trying to dive deep into what really makes the best onboarding and early career experience for mainframers. And one of the key aspects to that, and I'm hoping, you know, kind of putting a little bit of solve on the debate here, is a point where I think we have a lot of agreement, which is on mentorship. Right, Jen, you touched on it in terms of reverse mentorship, which is awesome. That was an awesome point, by the way. But the reality is, you know, the normal mentorship, non-reverse, that's a weird term, I guess, is such a critical part of the mainframe experience. We, unlike basically every other platform, we actually have folks that have been on this, you know, for 30, sometimes 40. We just had a guy who was on for 55 years. That's so cool, right? That people have that kind of deep experience on the platform to share with the younger generation. So maybe, Jen, I'm going to pass it back to you. Maybe just a couple key points you wanted to make about the importance of mentorship and how that can work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that is probably the key piece that really makes it all click, makes it all come together. One of the things that I've noticed is when I've worked with the onboarding program, there's new hires that obviously will, you know, direct themselves to some of the folks that they're introduced to, and they become an informal mentor, so to speak, because they learn from them. We make sure that within our onboarding program that there is a network of people that all of our new hires can reach out to. And one of the reasons for that is because, hey, you know what, this is about Rex, and so taught me Rex, so I need to talk to that person to see what additional information that I can get. So it becomes this networking event, so to speak. So it's not only learning, but it's a networking event. But then they go on to their teams, and when they're with their teams, what they're doing is they're learning from the people that have the experience within their teams. So not only are they networking within the new hire program, they're also networking within their teams, and they're learning more from their teams, and then they spread out to other folks. So when they're being mentored by some of these experienced engineers, it's really helping them with their career and boosting them upwards. And yes, I did mention the reverse mentoring, because then what's happening is also the folks that are coming in straight from college, they're sharing their experiences with some of the other folks. So it's working both different, you know, both directions. And what I'm only seeing nothing but positives from it.
Yeah, and just to add on, I mean, when we're talking about the next generation of mainframers, mentorship is the key. It is the way that you are able to retain these individuals. And one of the things we do within the Vitality program is we provide them with multiple mentors. We provide them as they go through their product training with a technical mentor that's going to teach them anything they need to know about the product. That's the person they lean on to learn anything about that product they need. But also as they get out to their customer sites, we ask that the customer provide a mentor from their side, and that mentor is there to really give them all the insights of how these products work at their site. And those two mentors together can almost ensure that this individual will be successful in learning at this new site. They learned the basics. Now it's time for them to learn, in a real site. And those what those two mentors are about. But what I encourage new generation of mainframers to do is not only have your technical and your work mentor, but also have a career mentor. I've had mentors throughout my entire career that I lean on to talk to in this mainframe space. Even though the mainframe is vast in what it does and all of the industries that it touch, the community is so small, and you're going to run across these people throughout your career. Link up with them, have mentorships. Us older people, we need to take some of these younger people under our wings and help guide them, into where they want to go, and welcome them into this community, because it takes all of us. And one of my former managers here at Broadcom says, had a session on this. It takes a village to raise the next generation of mainframer, and it really does. It takes all of us welcoming them in and being there for them when they ask the questions that they need to ask. And that's whether it's a technical question, a career question, and so on. The mentorship is key to retention of these young mainframers coming into the space. We can't just say, get in and learn this. You have to be there for them and help guide them.
And one thing too about the mainframe space that I have noticed is every single person that I've encountered in the mainframe space wants you to be successful, whether you've been in the mainframe space for 20 years or whether you've been in the mainframe space for 2 weeks. Every single one of them wants each and every individual to be successful. So they're going to do what they can to help you become successful within your career in the mainframe, which I think is something I have not seen across the board. So seeing that and hearing that and knowing that, Earl just said it's a small community. It's like a family. So knowing that everybody wants you to be successful, I think that's part of it as well.
And just one more thing to add to that, just as you have the mentors, the mentees, you have to be receptive to that criticism that you're gonna get, and be open. And also the mentors provide that criticism in such a way that it is receptive. You want these guys to learn, but you don't want to discourage them. And at the same time, those who are being mentored, you need to learn. So listen to what's being said to you. It's a two-way street, and not all mentor and mentee relationships will work out, but you have to have that right mix and have that person that will be there for you. Not everyone's meant to be a mentor. That's just honest.
Well, I think, there's one of the nicest sentiments I've heard about this was from a career mainframer I met in 2020 at the Share in Fort Worth. And he said, all I really want at the end of my career is to hand my baby over to someone who's really going to care for it. And I think that's kind of the mentality of mentoring, right? That you've cared for this platform for your career, and you want to ensure that the title of this presentation is creating a new legacy. We want to hand this. The goal is to hand it over to the next generation and ensure that they have the tools, both hard and soft skills, and everything in between, to be successful. Another thing that I've seen, which is really interesting, is I spent a lot of time interviewing younger mainframers just to learn, what their experiences are like. And on several occasions, I've had them sort of be very proud of what I might call, their mentoring pedigree, sort of being very proud that they had been mentored by sort of a mainframe legend. It'd sort of be like saying, I was mentored in mainframe ops by Earl Dixon, right?
Yeah, that would be great.
I would totally be the same, man. but
How
that
much
kind
is he
of
paying
drive,
you?
but I think that's maybe a common thread that I see as well, both in career mainframers and the next generation, is a real pride in the platform, and that is perhaps the greatest torch that can be passed on. Is that
And I
pride?
do want to give a quick story of something that happened within the Vitality program. We had a young man from our very first cohort. He went out datacommer, and he went on to become a very successful datacommer. And that company came back and said, "Hey, we got someone retiring, and we need another person." Well, we trained up the next cohort, and they went out to this company, and now the mentor was the person that got mentored through the very first cohort, and now he's mentoring the next generation. Well, not even really the next generation, but the next class. And to see how that mentorship carried along from him being mentored by these individuals, now him being the guy at the site who's now the senior person mentoring the next person coming through the program, it was just a testament to how mentorship can bring people along and keep them in their space.
That's really
That's
cool.
great. Yeah.
Jen, are there any final thoughts you had to share?
Just that, Earl and I have been working together now for close to 4 years. And so this is very similar to the conversations that we have. We look at the research, we look at what's going on in the marketplace, we look at what is happening. We're reading up on what is the most beneficial way to get our new hires onboarded, to get the Vitality residents onboarded. We speak directly to the students, and we speak to them frequently during the program and after the program. So we gather that feedback. As Josh has mentioned, it's an ongoing conversation. We continue to have the conversations because we want to make sure that what we're providing for our students, whether they're our own internal students or whether they're external students, we want to provide the most valuable education for them, and we strive to do that and continue to do that. So, those are really my closing points.
Yeah, and for me, it's just more of, as these conversations develop in your organizations or wherever you are, just keep in mind that they're, like she said, they're always evolving. Always have an open mind. That's why we kind of have these debates, so that we can open ourselves up. I was a staunch proponent of, on-site learning. That's the way. That's it. And I've moved more to a hybrid. So there's room for us all to grow within these conversations, but just be willing to listen to each other in those conversations and have these open debates where they're more friendly than combative.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic advice. And so unfortunately, I think we could probably have this conversation for the rest of the day and maybe into tomorrow. Looks like we're starting to bump up against our time. And I think probably in our audience, there's probably a fair number of strong viewpoints on this as well, maybe some questions for our participants. Len, are we able to open that up? Is it already open? I wanted to make sure that people had a chance to voice their opinions, questions, whatever they may have.
So it's already open. We did have a couple comments, but they didn't seem contextual, so I didn't interrupt you guys. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to put them in the questions box, and we'll give you a few seconds to do that. Or if you're typing something a little bit longer, please do go ahead and just type wait, so that I know to hold off and not shut things down. And I will also
Earl was mentioning.
Go ahead, Jen. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, while Earl had mentioned about, being more receptive to a hybrid model, the same goes for those who do not have a comp sci degree. I know the individuals that Earl is referring to as we were talking, and absolutely, they had a hunger for this, and they've been phenomenal. So, I am open to that as well. And, Earl has shown me what has been working very well within the Vitality program. So obviously we have an open mind as to what's going on and what can be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think having a diversity of experience and skills can only help the mainframe. I mean,
Yes.
that's really what the long and the short of this is. We recognize it's more critical than ever to have these, amazing diversity of skills on the mainframe to help it grow into the future. And that's just awesome that, in the process of this debate, we almost come to that realization that there
Yeah.
isn't just a single right answer.
Well, and that's just it. Diversity means so many different things, and having those diverse backgrounds are so beneficial because they can bring things up within the discussions of someone that's just strictly technical. They can bring those diverse conversations up, and then somebody realizes, wow, I never thought that direction. Let's try that and see. That's where innovation occurs.
Absolutely.
Well, I almost think of a situation, where someone from a very technical background coming on will be aware of sort of the most cutting edge technologies. But someone from, more, maybe even starting a second career on the mainframe may have more of an awareness
Practical.
of how to navigate the internal politics to actually get that implemented. I think it's almost that pairing that can be super powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think also non-experienced people that come into the mainframe, they bring a more practical approach from a standpoint of, well, why don't we just do this? Because if I was an end user, I want this, because they don't know. And whereas somebody with a comp sci degree is like, oh, well, that should just be second nature. Well, not to everyone, especially as we integrate the mainframe with all of these other outside products. It's not just a given. So we have to make sure that our mainframers are setting the mainframe up in such a way that it's easy for anyone. With all of the Zoe plugins and so on, where you have individuals that have no mainframe skills can write a COBOL program and run it on the mainframe. So those type of ideas that come out of those that don't have those technical degrees can help.
And that goes back to no matter what you're doing, you have to meet the people where they are, not where you are. So it's always keeping that in mind.
It's a great message. Maybe
All right, Lynn, you said there were some comments. I would
Yeah,
like.
I guess you go back and get that. So back when you were talking about the virtual versus in person, someone who I believe, actually, yeah, it says that we got a comment saying more interface time between student and professor in a virtual setting. Someone learns more if they're put on the spot.
Yes. Trust me, I totally agree with that. I've been put on the spot.
Forces you to pay attention, right, Lynn?
That's right.
Exactly. And then the other comment that came in was talking about, we're working with the product for a long time. This comment said, that's a great statement. Working on an application for so long, it does feel like your baby.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
And I think this going back to that idea of, I think one of the issues with the virtual world, rather virtual format, is that you wind up competing with everything else that's going on in someone's room. Like right now, you can see Jen, Earl, and I here, but you can only see this small section of our world. You can't see anything else that's going on, and that's something that's hard to overcome. You wind up competing, with everything else. Like I could easily be checking my phone here and you wouldn't even really be able to see it, though you might see my eyes dart down. That's much more difficult to do in the classroom. And so maybe the challenge is, that we need to, it almost puts more pressure on the instructors and the mentors to make the information engaging. Obviously, like I'm kind of an old school teacher myself. I will definitely call out people in a classroom, but even just being a bit more diverse in the way that we approach the subject matter, not just say putting a deck up on the screen and running through it, as a professor might, but maybe having more interactive sessions where students are being forced to actually produce something and think and work in groups, things that actually mimic what real work life is like.
Absolutely.
I think that's the challenge we face. It's a great comment, actually, because I found that to be a problem myself.
We actually do have it's sort of a question that just came in. We have a few minutes left here. This person is asking for your thoughts on Hercules mainframe emulators. I don't know if you guys are even familiar with that.
I am not.
Hercules?
Yeah.
I can put a note to learn something about that, but I don't.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever heard of it as well. So, Maybe we can
I am
table that
very
question
old
for.
school. I had 3270 emulators, so.
Yeah, so maybe we'll shelve that for now, and we can talk about it in a future session maybe. Are there any other questions, folks? And I'll also take this opportunity to remind you that we do have our post-event survey that will pop up. I know the team would love some feedback on today's webcast.
Thanks, everyone.
We can
Thank
take it on
you.
that.
Yep, I don't see anything else. So let's just go ahead and wrap up. Thanks you very much, everybody, for joining, and to Earl, Josh, and Jen for hosting today's session. We will see you next time. Have a great day.
All right.
Take care.